The Steam Deck has really won my heart in gaming. No matter if they consist of engaging combat, a beautiful world to explore, or a rich story that makes me reflect on my life, there are so many games in which I believe deserves their utmost respect. So today I'll share the top 50 must-play games on the Steam Deck in 2025. Let's check it out. So let's start out with Lords of the Fallen. Lords of the Fallen is a Souls-like dark fantasy game in which there are hundreds of unique weapons to use, as well as a vast interconnected world. What's cool about this world is that there are both the world of the living as well as the world of the dead, in which you must navigate, in which they are all very unforgiving and whatnot. There are also various secret treasures, as well as interesting enemies and tough bosses to fight, in which it will pump your adrenaline up. So yeah, if you love a challenging game in which it could keep you busy for a while and where it really feels satisfying as you progress, definitely check out Lords of the Fallen on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Lethal Company. Lethal Company is a co-op horror first-person survival game set in a futuristic world where you and up to 3 other friends get to assume the roles as contractors of the company, and where it is your job to explore abandoned moons and collect certain amounts of scraps and go back to return and sell them to the company. Now, as far as the abandoned moons goes, there are various hazards, various traps, as well as various harmful creatures that get in your way, in which you gotta watch out. And where in this game, it's all about being careful and collecting enough scraps in order to meet the quota that the company sets for you. If you love horror survival games and where there is a whole bunch of unexpected things to happen in the game, definitely check out Lethal Company on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Quantum Break. Quantum Break is a third-person action-adventure shooter where you get to not only shoot hordes of enemies, but where each type has different behaviors where you have to learn and adapt. I really love how you get access to time powers, and time powers are basically powers where you get to manipulate time to either accomplish different tasks or take down different enemies. And also another thing about this game too is that there is story junctions. There are plenty of different junctions that basically affect the plot of the game. Now up next is Creatures of Ava. In this game you get to clear the land from corruption known as the Withering, as well as in the meantime tame various creatures from the Withering, in which clears the corruption in their minds and helps them to no longer be foes but friends to you. Now once you clear different various creatures, the corruption in their minds, you can play your flute to basically guide them to the nearest rescue robot station in order to transport them to your ship with the goal of preserving the various species. So yeah, if all that sounds really interesting to you, if you love these type of adventure games where there are no bloodshed and where you feel like you are making a difference, definitely check out Creatures of Ava on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Bayonetta. Bayonetta is a renowned fast-paced hack-and-slash game with chaotic battles, as well as where you can just go around and fight hordes of enemies with no mercy whatsoever, and where in the meantime collect all the different kind of rings and whatnot, and where you also need to work your brain to solve different puzzles in order to progress in the game. What's cool about Bayonetta is that the missions are actually divided into what they call verses, in which the verses work as segments of a chapter, and where when you complete each verse, you are actually graded by how well you complete the segment through a given medal. But anyways, if all that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Bayonetta on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Greak Memories of Azur. What I really love about Greak Memories of Azur is the amazing soundtrack, as well as the interesting bosses that you get to encounter, as well as a beautiful world that is fully immersive, as well as, more importantly, what I really love about this game is that you also get to control all 3 of the characters simultaneously. So yeah, if you really love an emotional platformer game where there are interesting amazing characters as well as an amazing soundtrack, and where you will have to be on your toes at all times, definitely check out Greak Memories of Azur on the Steam Deck. Now up next is ReCore Definitive Edition. ReCore Definitive Edition is an action game where you get to play as Jolly Adams, one of the last humans living on a planet called Far Eden, which is occupied by robotic foes. Along with you also have some companions, which are Corebots, aka robot machines, who will help assist you on various missions, which involve fighting various enemies as well as solving various puzzles. What's cool about combat is that the enemies all have these color codes which resemble their weaknesses to a matching color code of ammunition. For instance, if an enemy has a red code, you should use a firearm with a red code, as well as, if possible, use a Corebot with a same colored core to take down the enemy effectively, as the color code basically resembles the specific color code for the weakness of the enemy. Anyways, if you love, action games with chaotic fights, combating various enemies in an unknown futuristic world, definitely check out ReCore on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. What's unique about this game is that you get to control the two brothers simultaneously. You control one of the brothers on the left buttons of your Steam Deck, while you control the other one with the right buttons of your Steam Deck. Now, though some may consider the control layout to be clunky, I personally really enjoyed controlling the two brothers simultaneously on the left and the right side of the Steam Deck. To me, I just feel this sense of emotional attachment to the two brothers when controlling both of them on my Steam Deck simultaneously. It just brings about a warmth inside of me where I feel the love and the bond between the two brothers, that they would do all it takes to go on this journey and see the journey as one. So yeah, if you are looking for a game where there are a whole bunch of different puzzles to solve, as well as you really am looking for a game where there's an emotional story to it, definitely check out Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Riftbreaker. The Riftbreaker is a base building real-time strategy game where you play as Ashley, who gets to explore and gather various resources, and where you get to use the resources to build necessary buildings for your base, whether it is research buildings, whether it is energy buildings, whether it is ammunition buildings. And what I really love about this game is, as you get to build and you get to explore, you get to attack hordes of enemies in hack and slash style, where you must do all it takes to fend off the enemies from destroying the base. So yeah, if you really love these type of base building games where there is a whole bunch of action to it, where there are hordes of enemies that you gotta deal with, as well as you love where there is a beautiful world to explore and find those different nuts and cranks, definitely check out Riftbreaker on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Undertale. Now, what I really love about Undertale is there are plenty of towns and caves to explore, as well as solve those various puzzles, as well as there are also various enemies and monsters to encounter, and where the monsters you can choose to whether kill them, whether to run away from them, or whether to befriend them. And what is really interesting about these different choices is that no matter what choice you pick, it will greatly affect the plot of the game, and it will lead to various different types of endings. So yeah, if you really love these type of retro vibe type of games where there is a whole bunch of different places to explore, as well as there's an awesome story with a whole bunch of different endings, definitely check out Undertale on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Loopmancer. Loopmancer is a 3D roguelite game where you get to play in a cyberpunk-like universe, and where you assume the role of a Chinese detective where you must go after a gang in Dragon City, which is a futuristic fictional city. The thing about Loopmancer is that every time you die, you get resurrected again, and you have to restart the mission again to deal with the various gang overlords. What really shines in Loopmancer is the colors. They really pop on a screen, especially an OLED screen. So yeah, definitely check out Loopmancer on the Steam deck. Now up next is Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. In this game, there are tons of merciless enemies to fight in an unforgiving world with really tough, engaging bosses. In this game, you play as a disgraced and disfigured shinobi, aka a ninja, who must go on a mission to save his lord who got captured and basically restore his honor. If you love games that blend stealth and face-to-face combat with deadly twos and where you can fight like a savage ninja, then definitely check out Sekiro Shadows Die Twice on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Sunset Overdrive. Sunset Overdrive is an open-world futuristic game set in the year 2027. In this game, you get to freely explore this fictional city called, you know it, Sunset City, and where as you go around in parkour style, you can wall run, you can grind rails, you can zip line, air dash, and many more. And while you're doing that, what's really cool is you also get to fight those different enemies called mutants, which are basically humans that were transformed after taking an energy drink made by Fizco. There are also plenty of weapons that you get to use using a weapon wheel, where there are just various weapons that you can customize and whatnot to better take down those different mutants. If you really love open world games where there are chaotic enemies to fight and where you are on your feet at all times while exploring a fictional city, definitely check out Sunset Overdrive on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Persona 5 Strikers. Persona 5 Strikers is the sequel to Persona 5, and where it is a real-time action hack-and-slash game in which you get to fight hordes of enemies mercilessly, and also in the meantime summon personas for special moves and whatnot. Persona 5 Strikers features an amazing story in which it really teaches me more about life, what I should value and whatnot, as well as there are also these returning amazing characters from Persona 5, plus also some interesting characters as well as villains that are added that are only in Persona 5 Strikers that are quite interesting and whatnot, in which, you know, the characters in Persona 5, they really motivate the new characters, some villains as well, to help them turn from evil to become good. So that is just something that is really cool and really fun and whatnot. Now up next is Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade is a hack-and-slash style game with a bit of RPG elements to it. As far as this game goes, you get to engage in various chaotic fights in which they are really flashy, as well as what I love about Stellar Blade is that much more than just a normal kind of repetitive hack-and-slash game is that you get to upgrade and enhance various weapons, and where there's also a whole bunch of skills that you can acquire throughout the game. But yeah, if all that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Stellar Blade on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Split Fiction. What's really cool about Split Fiction is that there are tons of unexpected moments in which 1 second you could be taming dragons and the next second you could be fighting ninjas in style, as well as also be running away from different trolls, dodging cars. The possibilities are just so freaking endless. In this game, you and your friend, basically you two, will be assuming the roles as different writers, and unfortunately you and your friend are basically trapped in your story after being hooked to a machine which is stealing your ideas. Yes, your ideas, using your talents, stealing them and claiming it as their own. Yeah, very sad, very unfortunate. So you and your friend must work together and do all it takes to basically break free, and also by doing so, you guys also have to cooperatively overcome the various challenges together, as well as learn to master various abilities. So yeah, if you're looking for a story-rich game which you can enjoy with your significant other or a buddy of yours, definitely check out Split Fiction on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Nier Automata. Nier Automata has a blend of hack-and-slash elements, shoot-'em-up elements, as well as a bit of RPG elements. As far as the shoot-'em-up goes, there are times when you get to glide and shoot at various enemies while dodging obstacles that come at you along the way, as well as other times when you are navigating the world, you get to fight different enemies with melee-style weapons, as well as shoot them down with some gun weapons. Now, as far as RPG elements goes, there's also a level up system where you can also customize various various gears that you obtain, as well as make use of magic. So yeah, if all that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Nier Automata on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is a 3D platformer shooter adventure game where you get to fight hordes of enemies with a weapon wheel, where you have access to a whole bunch of different guns, different type of ammo and whatnot, as well as you also get to go around the different worlds to collect those various bots, and you get to also explore in this cartoon-like world where there's also two different types of dimensions. What I really love about Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is also how there are amazing bosses that are really interesting to engage and fight with, as well as there are also puzzles where you get to solve that keeps your brain working to try to figure out how to progress in the game, as well as also these different side quests that are also very quirky and fun. So yeah, if you really love these games where there is a blending of, third-person shooter as well as platforming and adventure and action and whatnot, if you love these games that have a mixture that it just blends in very well with these separate genres, definitely check out Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Alan Wake. What I love about Alan Wake is that there are plenty of unexpected ambushes as you journey out, as well as there are also those intense fights where you will have to utilize your flashlights, lanterns, and anything that has light to stun the enemies before shooting them down. So yeah, if you really love action thriller games where it is also has the elements of survival and horror elements to it, then definitely check out Alan Wake on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 blends turn-based action and real-time action together, and where in this game you manage a group of friends, aka party members, in which the party members, when you equip them, they take turns in fighting, and where you have to select a specific skill in order to attack the enemy. Now as far as during combat, like I said about how you select a specific skill to attack the different enemies, the thing about that is when you select a skill, you will automatically get into real-time action mode, in which there will be a button prompt on the screen and where you must execute the move, aka press the button at a specific timing, and the more accurate you are with timing your button input press, the more damage you will deal with the enemy. It is a really fun game in which I find myself really addicted with the combat and whatnot, and there's also a beautiful world where there are various places to explore in which I can really sink my teeth in. So number 30 is Valheim. Valheim is a beautiful open world survival RPG game where you get to build, fight, conquer different enemies, and it is set in a Viking vibed island where you also get to gather different resources such as, farming, such as hunting, such as going mining, to do all it takes to get the proper resources in order to build your land. What I love about Valheim is that, you can take your time to build your land, while at the same time it also blends in where you get to fight those different enemies and also be able to marvel at this beautiful fantasy world. I mean, this is just something that is just really nice, and if you have a really massive brain and where you are very good at imagining things, you have a big sense of imagination, Valheim is just perfect. Now up next is Deep Rock Galactic. Deep Rock Galactic is a game in which you and up to 3 other friends get to play in first-person shooter fashion as dwarves living on this procedurally generated cave. What I really love about Deep Rock Galactic is that you get to work together as you go about, whether it is digging, whether it is exploring, whether it is fighting merciless hordes of enemies, as well as whether it is gathering resources. It is just a really fun co-op experience where you get to just embark on this adventure while exploring those different areas that just feels like space, some place where you normally will not be able to explore in real life. So yeah, if all this sounds really interesting to you, definitely check out Deep Rock Galactic on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Hades. What I really love about Hades is the hack and slash element. I love love just going in there and fighting various hordes of enemies, as well as what I really love about Hades is also the different interesting boss fights that you got to do in order to progress in the underworld. As well as really love the soundtrack of Hades. The music just brings about the vibe of the atmosphere of the game and what's going on in the game. So yeah, if you really love a beautiful indie roguelike dungeon crawler game, definitely check out Hades on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Pepper Grinder. In this side-scrolling platformer, you get to utilize, you know it, a grinder where you get to grind and drill holes to progress in the game, as well as kill enemies along the way, engage in interesting boss fights. The possibilities are just freaking endless. Now up next is Celeste. It is a very emotional game where you get to platform up the mountain and where you also get to learn more about Celeste and just cheer her on in her journey for self-discovery. But also what I love about Celeste is that there are also various secret areas in the game where you get those secret items. So yeah, if you want a game that is really beautiful, as well as it has a beautiful soundtrack and where it could be challenging at times, but also where the characters may potentially motivate you in order to become a better person, definitely check out Celeste on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Bramble the Mountain King. What I really love about Bramble is how there is an awesome narrator. As you progress in the game, there are times where the narrator will just say a interesting dialogue where it sounds as if it is somebody like your mom who is reading a bedtime story to you. If you really love these type of games where there is a very big sense of emotion tied behind it, as well as where a game that it can speak to you in many different ways, as well as if you love these type of games where there's a beautiful soundtrack and a beautiful presentation, definitely check out Bramble the Mountain King on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Judgement. In this game, there are really cool, interesting, engaging plot twists, various side stories which keep me on my toes, as well as there are really interesting and fun encounters with gangs that I can beat up while roaming around, similar to the various Yakuza games. What's unique about Judgement, however, is the fact about mortal wounds. The thing about mortal wounds, they occur when you get hit by those various enemies, and where if you get those mortal wounds, it will permanently decrease your maximum health, in which, in order for you to recover your fullest potential of maximum health, you must do two different options. One, either find a treatment from an underground doctor, or two, buy medical kits to use in order to restore your maximum health. So that is a gameplay element that I really like, that in which it is really unique. It just brings about this kind of strategy. It brings about this kind of thing in which you gotta be careful about not getting damaged by those tough enemies. It is something that's just really, really important to note. So yeah, if you are a person like me who loves a really engaging thriller story, as well as you love games where the story, the characters and all that speak to you in many different ways, as well as you really love these games where there are a unique type of gameplay style where there is extra spice to it, definitely check out Judgement on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Lost Judgment. What I love about Lost Judgment is that there are plenty of unexpected plot twists, as well as a very thrilling adventure that you get to embark in. I also love where you get to go around those Japanese streets while beating up various thugs, as well as what I also love is that there are plenty of side things to do, most notably the side quests as well as school stories. If you are somebody who loves those Yakuza games and you love going around fighting up these different thugs, you like these type of action type of games, as well as you love games that speak to you in many different ways, definitely check out Lost Judgment on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Ryse, Son of Rome. What I really love about Ryse, Son of Rome is how there are a lot of enemies to fight in hack and slash fashion, where you just go in and chaotically engage in the enemy fights and whatnot. What I also love about this game is how brutal the game is, where you get to engage in execution sequences, as well as you get to use various weapons, either the weapon own as well as the weapons in the environment from time to time, to engage in different fights fights to your advantage. And then on top of Ryse Son of Rome, the campaign, there's also gladiator mode where you can play either by yourself or with one friend, where you get to fight off various waves of enemies and whatnot. And that is something that I feel, even though that is not the major seller point for Ryse Son of Rome, the major seller point for Ryse Son of Rome is obviously the campaign, in my opinion. But I am really glad that they included gladiator mode. But anyways, if you are somebody who loves hack and slash games, and you also love these games where there is an emotional story to it and where you really feel for the character, definitely check out Ryse Son of Rome on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Spider-Man Miles Morales. I really love how you get to explore New York City, where you stop those different crimes, as well as I really love those different attacks, the attack moves like the Venom attack, which is just really cool and really fun, and where you just blast at those different enemies and whatnot. I love that inclusion of it, as well as I really love, as far as the game goes about the side activities, is having the ability to clear out those different Roxxon labs and hideouts, which is basically story related. I won't give you any spoilers, don't worry, and where you get to fight those different waves of enemies when participating in those different activities. As well as what I really love about Miles Morales is that compared to Spider-Man 2018, I feel like they really improved on the various challenges. What's really cool about it is that they have a lot of spice to it. For example, you know, you could have one combat challenge in which you have to kill the enemies by launching them in the air, and while another challenge could also be a combat challenge where you basically have to kill the different enemies without taking damage. That's what I kind of remember, is that even though there are various challenges that may be labeled as the same kind of category, like combat, stealth, or traversal, but there are also those objectives in those different challenges that brings about the spice to the different challenges. It is not straightforward like Spider-Man 2018, where, you know, a stealth challenge is just where you take out those different enemies stealthily, and where a combat challenge, you're just basically racing in the time to kill those different enemies at a specific time. No, Spider-Man Miles Morales, the thing about those challenges is that there is extra spice to it. There are specific things you have to do even in those specific category of challenges. So that is something in which I really love about Spider-Man Miles Morales, much more than Spider-Man 2018. So yeah, if you are somebody who doesn't mind shorter games and you love these type of open world games where there are tons of things to do, but at the same time you also love it to be a short and sweet story that is touching as well, definitely check out Spider-Man Miles Morales on the Steam Deck. So number 20 is Just Cause 3. It is a really fun, chaotic game where there are amazing exploring mechanics such as the tethering mechanics, as well as utilizing the variety of weapons such as rifles, missile launchers, aircrafts, ships, cars, and many more. It's a really fun, chaotic, action-packed adventure where the possibilities are just endless. So yeah, if you really love these type of action-packed games where there is a beautiful world to explore and where you can blow up stuff, you can also fight in various different ways that are just so remarkable, definitely check out Just Cause 3 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. What I love about Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition is that there are plenty of things to do. You can just drive around town, engage on various missions, whether it is the triad missions, whether it is the cop missions, whether it is just regular civilian side missions. There's just so many different variety of missions that you can do throughout the streets of Hong Kong. And another thing that I also love about Sleeping Dogs is that it also has this Asian vibe. As somebody who is Asian, I kind of like that because it kind of just relates to me, even though I am not an undercover cop. But it's just cool to see games where when there are those dialogues where people speak in Chinese. It's just really cool to see that from time to time. But anyways, if you really love, you know, cop games, you love open world action games where there's a lot of things to do and where you can just go around and treat the city as if it is your city, definitely check out Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition on the Steam Deck. Now, number 18 is the Saboteur. What I really love about the Saboteur is that it perfectly blends driving, shooting, melee combat, exploration, mashing that all together. I mean, you could be just driving in the countryside for 1 minute, and then a few minutes later, you are suddenly in the city engaging in massive shootouts. Man, it's just something that just brings about all these varieties, all these things going on, and all this craziness and chaoticness, all these different things just all blending in together. But what I really want to praise the Saboteur is that I love how there is this amazing thing about their illustrations. For areas that are occupied by the Germans, it would be black and white, which signifies, doom and gloom in France. When you continue and progress in the game, you will liberate various areas. Those liberated areas will have their color aesthetics restored, basically just showing that that part is becoming peaceful and the civilians living in that area of France will be safe and secure. It's just really cool to see how there is just this type of illustration that brings about this vibe of what's going on in the game. But anyways, if you really love historical fiction type of games where there's a whole bunch of action in it, definitely check out Saboteur on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. What I really love about Hellblade is that it takes place in this dark fantasy world, and where it just perfectly blends the gameplay concepts of puzzles, of the disability awareness, aka psychosis, as well as melee combat, and it just makes me really feel the thing about what's going on with Senua, somebody who is dealing with psychosis. People who have this type of disability, it doesn't stop them from achieving what they need to achieve. It's just something that is just so remarkable. So yeah, if you really love dark fantasy emotional games where there's a deep story as well as there is a strong vibe, strong sense of disability awareness, definitely check out Hellblade 1 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is an action-adventure game set in the fictional Wild West 1899, in a sense that the aesthetics, they bring about this picture of what the Wild West of America is like, but at the same time, the lands, the names, and whatnot, they are fictional. As far as combat side of things, you can engage in melee combat, firearms combat, using bow and arrow, as well as using dual-wield weapons, and many more. As well as what I really love is that there are also a whole bunch of different side activities, such as dueling, bounty hunting, just to name a few. So yeah, if you really love action games where there is an interesting story as well as where there are just a lot of things to do, definitely check out Red Dead Redemption 2 on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Horizon Zero Dawn. What I love about Horizon Zero Dawn is that how there is a beautiful world to explore, as well as what I love about it is that you get to fight those different machines, whether it is shooting arrows or just going straight in bare bones with melee combat. As well as what I love about Horizon Zero Dawn is that there are a whole bunch of different side quests that I get to do where I get to help those around me as Aloy, as well as what I also love is engaging in those different trials, which is basically challenges in other types of games. And what I really love specifically about the trials is that there are a variety of different types of trials. There is just a whole bunch of creativity that goes behind the different trials. For instance, there is one specific trial that I remember where you must use the environment to your advantage in order to kill the different machines, to kill a certain amount of machines at a specific time limit. And I find that really interesting. So yeah, if you really love these type of action games where there is a beautiful story as well as a beautiful world to explore and where there are lots to do as well as just going about hunting and exploring and whatnot, definitely check out Horizon Zero Dawn on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Halo Masterchief Collection. Halo Masterchief Collection is 6 for the price of 1, baby, where it includes 6 classic Halo games. Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, Halo Reach, Halo 2 Anniversary, Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, as well as Halo 4. What I really love about Halo Masterchief Collection is that it is just really iconic. It just brings back the vibes of the classic games that I enjoy back in the day. If you are somebody who's a longtime Halo fan, you must check out Halo Masterchief Collection. If you are somebody who just wants to kind of hop into the Halo franchise, you must check out the Halo Masterchief Collection. It is just something in which it is just so mind-blowing, so amazing, and where it's really great to be able to play on the Steam Deck and play on the go whenever possible. Now up next is Ori and the Blind Forest. What I really love about Ori and the Blind Forest is the beautiful world to platform, as well as there are also those different secret areas that you can discover. Also on top of that, there is an emotional story that brings tears to my eyes, as well as a beautiful soundtrack to bring all that awesomeness together. If you love these type of beautiful platforming games where there is just an emotional story, definitely check out Ori and the Blind Forest on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest. What I love more about Ori and the Will of the Wisps is that there are side quests that you get to engage. I believe those side quests, they bring about those different values in the game, as well as what I really love about how there's those different side quests is because it just feels that Ori gets to engage more with the community in the forest. It just makes me feel as if Ori is being more intentional with the residences in the environment. If you really love these type of Metroidvania platformer games where there is a beautiful world to explore, as well as an amazing soundtrack, and where there is a lot of things to do and whatnot, and also interesting boss fights, definitely check out Ori and the Will of the Wisps on the Steam Deck. Now up next is Ghost of Tsushima. What I really love about Ghost of Tsushima is the side activities that you get to do. The side quest called Tales of Tsushima, even though it is optional, but I highly recommend playing all those Tales of Tsushima, experiencing them to the fullest, because you get to understand those different stories as you bond with those different people around you that mean a lot to you. As well as what I also love is how there is a deep lore in those mystic tales and whatnot. And also what I really enjoy is, on top of that, there are also a lot of things to do in the open world aspect of Ghost of Tsushima, whether it is engaging in those bamboo strikes, as well as going into those different hot springs and just reflecting on life. It just brings about those different immersion in this beautiful world of Tsushima Island. But anyways, if you really love games where there is a lot of things to do in the game and where there's an emotional story that really teaches you a lot about life and speaks to you in many different ways, definitely check out Ghost of Tsushima on the Steam Deck. So number 10 is Yakuza 6, The Song of Life. In Yakuza 6, you play as Kazuma Kiryu, who just got out of prison and realizes that his daughter is in a coma due to a hit-and-run collision, leaving her baby son, aka Kiryu's grandson, alive and without the nurture of his mother. So you, as Kiryu, must take full responsibility by caring for your grandson like how a great father ought to treat his son, while discovering the dark secrets and truths tied to your daughter as well as your grandson. On top of that, you will also uncover the secrets of the Hiroshima Yakuza. There are plenty of various side quests that are also impactful to me as well, in which they taught me so much about life. What I love about this game is you get to beat up those various hordes of gangs or low-lifers along the streets of Japan, and what I really love in the process of beating them up is the bring of those different dialogues where the gang members mock the MC, in which I find quite funny at times. Now, as you progress, what I also love about the gameplay style is that you get to upgrade your skills, which makes you stronger and being able to take down much tougher enemies as well. So yeah, if you love these games where there's a whole bunch of action to it, as well as you love these Yakuza games where there is this gang life in Japan, as well as you also love these games that have a touching and beautiful story to it, definitely check out Yakuza 6, The Song of Life on your Steam Deck. Now, number 9 is I Am Setsuna. I Am Setsuna is a top-down, turn-based RPG-style game in which you get to play as Ender, the guardian of Setsuna, who is a woman chosen as the sacrifice in hopes to appease the monsters to prevent them from attacking your village. Throughout the game, you'll meet very interesting characters which will become your party member and assist you along the way, as well as you get to meet those different NPCs who gives out those various dialogues which brings about life in the civilization as it currently stands, as well as you get to engage in various monster fights with various strengths and weaknesses, and buy and upgrade your gear, as well as adding accessories to it to buff your party members, like how those RPG games work. What I really love about I'm Setsuna, on top of these attributes, is you get to also engage in exclusive side quests which are pertained to particular party members. And what I also really feel I'm Setsuna shines is the illustration of the world, from the snowy landscape to the soundtracks to the way the characters bond on their journey. It just brings about a beautiful story in which there are so many touching moments in which they help me reflect on my life and become a better person. Number 8, God of War 2018. God of War 2018 is a fun, action-packed adventure game with an amazing story where you play as Kratos, the iconic God of War franchise figure whose wife Faye passes away, leaving just him and his son Atreus as part of the family. Now, to give one last honor to his wife Faye, Kratos and Atreus goes about on a journey to the highest point of the 9 realms based on Norse mythology to spread the ashes of Faye. Throughout the journey, there are plenty of moments where Kratos taught Atreus how to grow and mature into a man both physically and mentally, such as helping him learn how to hunt as well as learn to control his anger, and those moments are extremely impactful. As for the action side of things, there are plenty of enemies to fight using various weapons such as the Leviathan Axe and later the Blades of Chaos, each having their own strengths and weaknesses. It is just so immersive and so engaging and so fun as well as so touching. But what I also love about God of War 2018 is that it also incorporates those RPG elements where you get to tinker your gear as well as learn new skills in fighting. Now, number 7, Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a masterpiece, an RPG challenging game with tough enemies, tough bosses, as well as a beautiful world to roam around. What's cool about Elden Ring is that there are a whooping 10 different classes to choose from, which brings about a diverse variety of how you will experience and feel in Elden Ring. So the gameplay possibilities are just pretty much endless, and not to mention there is also a vast open world environment that is also engaging, intriguing, and interesting to explore as well. On top of this, what I also love about Elden Ring is that there are various multiplayer modes. You can choose to do 3-player co-op in which you and 2 other friends just go about this open world to tackle the environment and whatnot, as well as you also get to do those PvP duels. So yeah, if you really love open world games which has tough enemies, tough bosses, as well as there is a amazing world to explore and where the possibilities are endless, definitely check out Elden Ring on your Steam deck. Now, number 6, Cyberpunk 2077. This game is a first-person action RPG game set in the fictional futuristic city called Night City, where there are tons of danger. What I love about Cyberpunk 2077 is the beautiful world that you get to explore, which is extremely immersive. I really love how there is a diverse amount of weapons, skills, and abilities, and on top of that, a diverse of things to do in Cyberpunk 2077. You can hack, you can engage in dialogue options, as well as do many more. Now, number 5, Persona 4 Golden. Persona 4 Golden is a turn-based RPG game about a high school protagonist who moves into a countryside town of a fictional Japanese city called Inaba, where he meets new friends while solving the mysteries of various murder cases in town, with the privilege of both interacting with the real world as well as entering into the cognitive realm through a TV and fighting all the way to the end in the form of their personas, which resemble the name of the series, but also the avatars reflecting on each individual, and are activated only when entering the TV and fighting and exploring various dungeons. The key is to fight and level up the various personas of each character to grant more skills, in which you will become stronger and buffer and whatnot in order to tackle more enemies in the games, in the dungeons and stuff. What's cool is that Persona 4 Golden perfectly blends turn-based RPG games with high school life simulation games, as in between those various deadlines in which you have to go into the TV to enter those different dungeons to tackle the dangers and whatnot to save a shadow out of those different dungeons, is that in between those different deadlines, they get to form different bonds with others as well as participate in various classes. So yeah, if you really love these type of turn-based RPG games where there is a rich story in which there are these different interesting characters in which there is so much to do and where you get to learn so much about those different stories, those things that captivate you and also teach you in how to become a better leader, definitely check out Persona 4 Golden on the Steam Deck. Now, number 4, Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 Royal, this is a turn-based RPG game. You get to play as a high school protagonist named Joker, who is unfortunately wrongfully accused of sexual misconduct and sent to Shujin Academy for an entire school year due to probation. At the school, he gets to meet new friends, and suddenly they all witness a mysterious app being planted in their phones, which give them access to the metaverse, aka the cognitive realm of corrupt adults, where the friends fight those different shadows in there and quote-unquote steal their treasures, which forces a change of heart in which the individual will confess his or her crimes in real life. It is a really fun turn-based RPG game with much exploration as well as a blend of high school simulation. Like Persona 4 Golden, there are these different deadlines where the party members must enter the dungeons and fight off these different shadows in fashion. In the meantime, in between those different deadlines, they get to form different bonds with others as well as get to participate in class. But anyways, yeah, if you really love these turn-based RPG games where there is a beautiful cast of characters in which it can teach you so much about life as well as teach you to become a better leader, and where there are also these different dungeons that you get to fight in as well as find those different secret areas to find those different secret treasures and whatnot. If you love all these different aspects of it with an amazing story, definitely check out Persona 5 Royal on the Steam Deck. Now, number 3, Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of Mordor is set between the events of Peter Jackson's The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings trilogy. Shadow of Mordor, in my opinion, is a very engaging open world game with tons of enemies to fight, places to explore, side quests that enhance the story, as well as a nice, unique nemesis system with a beautiful soundtrack, bringing Middle-earth Lord of the Rings vibes to it. What I love about the nemesis system is that you can track down those different Ulrichs, and where defeating the captains will weaken their goons, while being defeated by them will unfortunately level up the Ulrichs. So yeah, if you really love action games in which there are these immense worlds to explore, as well as there's also a unique nemesis system in which you will not see too much in any other type of games, in which there's a unique gameplay aspect to it, as well as there's a beautiful world for you to marvel about because you love Lord of the Rings, definitely check out Shadow of Mordor on the Steam Deck. Number 2, Shadow of War. Shadow of War is a direct sequel to Shadow of Mordor. What I love about the gameplay in Shadow of War is that, in my opinion, it is much better, it is much refined than Shadow of Mordor. There are much more spices added to Shadow of War. There's a much bigger world to explore, roam, fight, and engage in those various side quests. There are also a much bigger variety of weapons that you can use in battle. However, if this is not enough, what I am most impressed with Monolith Studios is them buffing the Nemesis system. In Shadow of War, when an enemy is dominated, they become spies to eavesdrop on various war chiefs and bring the intel back to Talion. Also, they can either become friends to Talion or become foes depending on how you as Talion treat them afterwards. Like, if you protect or abandon them during the battle, it can really affect how they will treat Talion. If you abandon them in battle, they could somehow side with Sauron again, and therefore they will just betray Talion and become an enemy once more. So yeah, if you really love Shadow of Mordor and you think that you don't have enough of Shadow of Mordor, definitely check out Shadow of War. I mean, Shadow of War is just a much better and bigger brother to Shadow of Mordor. But even if you are somebody who never touched Shadow of Mordor, I feel like you could definitely step into Shadow of War and still have a great time. Like I said, it is a much bigger brother to Shadow of Mordor, where there's just so many more things to do, so many different enemies to fight, so many different worlds, so many different areas in the world to explore, and so many different weapons that you can use. If you think that Shadow of Mordor, where the possibilities of gameplay is endless, then you'll feel Shadow of War just brings it into a whole new different level. But anyways, yeah, if you really love these open world action games where there is much to do, definitely check out Shadow of War on the Steam Deck. Alright guys, my favorite game of all time on the Steam Deck, and is none other than Metaphor ReFantazio. Metaphor ReFantazio is a turn-based RPG game by Atlus, who is also the studio for Persona games. So if you really enjoy Persona, you will most likely also love Metaphor as well. What Metaphor does right, in my opinion, is borrowing a lot of what Persona did and adding some spin to it and matching it with an adult version with adult themes. Metaphor ReFantazio is about how a kingdom named Ukrainia, which is in a mess because the king was being killed by an army officer named Luis, and a magic which is unique called a royal magic, hence the name due to it only previously known to the king, is being invoked. With the prince being a victim to the spell and in a coma but assumed dead by the people, and now the actual king dead, this leads to chaos in Ukrainia. Now, in order to determine who will be the next king, obviously because the king is dead and the prince is now in a coma, and where everybody thinks that the prince is dead as well, they don't know who will be the next king. So they decide to issue a royal tournament which ensures the individual who manages to get the most followers, the most people to believe in him or her, if they get the most amount of followers before the due date of the crowning of a new king, they will succeed to be the successor to the throne. Now, you as the protagonist enter the royal tournament. In the meantime, you study along with the team that you meet along the way and recruit along the way the methods in order to free the prince from the spell. Much of Metaphor involves basically traveling to those various lands of Ukrainia to grow one's influence. This can be achieved by speaking on stage, engaging in various bounty hunting where you go about those different dungeons or those different towers and you fight around those different enemies. But then there's also another thing that you get to do in Metaphor is you get to form those various bonds with key characters called followers in Metaphor ReFantazio and leveling them up to better your chances of fighting, but also this helps in growing your influence as well. As for combat, Metaphor also shines with the studying of various archetypes which serve as classes in RPG games. The archetypes can be learned by each character, can be swapped and whatever, and changed to accompany those different enemy strengths and weaknesses, whether it is in a dungeon, climbing up a tower, going in the desert, and so forth. There's a variety of different landscapes in which you fight those different enemies, and where there's all these different backgrounds that just looks so much different and paints a perfect picture of how the United Kingdom may look like if it was during those medieval times. And what I also love about Metaphor as well is the character development aspect to it. Like the Persona games, there is also this thing about leveling up those different followers. I mean, they call it followers here as opposed to bonds, but you get the same point. I mean, the major thing is that every single character in which I level up, they all have a unique story to tell in which they can relate to me one way or the other. And throughout the various encounters, there's those numerous plot twists, the many dialogues, as well as the amount of weight the protagonist carry in loving those around him. He really motivates me to become a better person, to become a better leader, and to serve those people that I am entrusted to. Someone who serves others instead of demanding to be served. Someone who doesn't misuse his power to control, but to empower others to take leadership in their own atmospheres of influence. I could go on and on about Metaphor because I love this game to death, and I am most likely planning to do an in-depth review sharing my thoughts of Metaphor later down in the line because this is one of my favorite games of all times. But yeah, to sum it up, if you are somebody who loves these turn-based RPG games and you love the Persona games, but at the same time you like characters that resonate better with you, because in this game it is much more adult-like in my opinion. It is not the high school vibes anymore. It is somebody who is going up to become king and also stepping up and taking responsibility. If that is something that more resonates with you, definitely check out Metaphor ReFantazio. It will definitely not disappoint. Alright friends, these are 50 great games in which I'll recommend any Steam Deck owner to check out. Let me know in the comment section below, are there any great games in which you recommend me to check out on the Steam Deck in which I did not include on this top 50 list? We'll love to discuss. And as always, if you love gaming lists, gaming discussions, gaming reviews, and everything related to Steam Deck, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so you not miss another video. I try to post Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time and occasionally on Fridays, so stay tuned. Once again, my name is Joe Wang for the Nomadic Gaming Guild, and game on!